All right, man, peace. So I caught a phenomenal segment on the CBS Nightly News in which they finally are starting to bring to the forefront for the American people the fact that the fastest growing quote unquote spiritual movement in the United States is Wicca, or organized witchcraft, which is something I've been telling you guys about for a very long time now. Most of your top politicians and the vast majority of your entertainers and athletes are participants in Luciferianism slash Wicca or witchcraft. And of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
New tonight. At a time when participation in traditional religions is declining among Americans, the practice of witchcraft is said to be on the rise.
Well, that makes sense because traditional religions are based in witchcraft. So many people are cutting themselves away from the traditional church system and, and going straight to the source. They're like, why drink a diluted product when I could just have, that straight heat, no chaser? That's why many people are going to Wicca or witchcraft. And that's people of all races. And that's also partly because of the energy in America is really galvanized and pushed by witchcraft energy and left-hand energy. The president of the United States or the presidents of the United States have all been witches, going back to George Washington, okay, who was a high-level Mason. Thomas Jefferson, every last one of them, they were high-level Masons. John Kennedy, every last one of them. So some of them may have been a little bit more informed in regards to what they were doing than others. But there's a reason why the presidents go to the Bohemian Grove and they venerate the owl image, which represents Molech and also represents the goddess Minerva.
CBS 2's Ali Bauman takes us inside the secret world of modern-day witches to explore why so many say they're falling under its spell.
All hail to the guardians of the Eastern Watchtower.
And I'm the High Priestess.
Blessed be the ancestors.
To be a witch is incredibly relevant.
Now, let's pay attention to some of the things that we just saw. The female said that she's the High Priestess. Wicca, which is a watered down version of a lot of the Druid witchcrafts, is oftentimes has a high priestess. It's oftentimes led by a female and by a male, but sometimes they'll have the highest person in that belief system be the woman. Now look over that guy's left shoulder. You'll see the image of the woodland god. In Greece, he was known as Pan. And in Britain, he was known as Cernunnos or Cernunnos. In the British version, he was half man, half stag, or half man, half deer. And of course, in the Greek version, he was half man, half goat. Now, the Greeks got Pan from the people of Kemet, where he was known as Khnum, Khn as in Nancy, U-M as in Michael. And he was also known as Benibdejet, if I remember correctly, but you brothers could look that up. All right, he was known as Khnub or Khnum and Benibdejet, where he was the viewed as the creator god. Now, that entity of Khnum or Benibdejet is really just talking about Cush. Cush was and I mentioned this man over and over again. He is the creator of the Babylonian mystery school system, the ordinances of it. And he was venerated because he was basically the man who gave mankind information and knowledge on the movements of the solar bodies, the moon. He was known as the man of the moon because he was able to develop a calendar for mankind. He was able to, he also, as Manes, Pharaoh Manes, was the person who directed the Nile River so that the people could create a civilization in ancient Kemet. That's why if you ever look up the god Khnum, he's viewed as the god of the Nile. All right, he's also viewed as the god of children. Now, in ancient India, he was known as, I believe, Naim Ganesha, right, or Naim Manisha, one of those names. You brothers could look it up. Starts with an N. And There, he also was depicted as half man, half goat, and he was viewed as the protector of children. But anyone who really understands what Cush was doing, he was the forefather of man-boy love. Okay? That's why as Pan, he was known as the god of pederasty, meaning he would lure little boys out into the woods and engage in an amorous relationship with little boys. I mentioned this before. You have characters that trickle down to today, like Peter Pan or E.T., that are allusions to Pan or allusions to Khnum. Now, Khnum went on to become known as, in his modern day manifestation, as the Baphomet, who is the god of the entertainment industry, and really is the entity that is worshipped today. Okay, he's the main god of this current civilization, this current society. Even when you look at who they call Uncle Sam, that is Khnum. That's why he's depicted with. That's why he's renowned for his what? His goatee. Okay? When he says "I want you," he's known as Uncle Sam, meaning Master Sam. That's an abbreviation of his name, Samael, who is the patron guardian of the Roman Empire. Okay, but look, man, everything that I've been telling you, brothers, is going to start to come out to the forefront.
In today's society,
I cast the circle hand to hand. We kind of work a magic.
See, there he goes, half man, half deer. Right, that is Cernunnos or Cernunnos, the woodland god. They worship the what they call the horn god or the horn deity. Remember, the horns represent power. Okay, so whenever you see Khnum or Benedjet, he either has the goat horns or the ram horns. We also see that in the constellation of Aries, as I told you, brothers, in another video. The astrology is really just a mystical way to commemorate Cush, Nimrod, and Semiramis. All the constellations are named after or meant to allude to certain characteristics of those three entities. Right? It's known as asterism. So it's when you look up at a constellation and you make a shape out of the stars, like the so-called constellation Orion, the hunter. That's Nimrod. Nimrod was known as what? A mighty hunter before the Most High, meaning what? He was able to get many people to follow him and leave the Most High. That is when Shem stepped in and was able to convince others to come back to the Most High, and then they moved as a unit to kill Nimrod.
Together.
Nestled in the heart of the Hudson Valley is the Church of the Eternal Circle, the only legally recognized Wiccan church in the state of New York.
Osiris.
We kind of follow the tradition of the craft of the wise.
Now, did you hear what they were chanting? They were chanting Osiris, Osiris. This is why I tell you, brothers, a lot of these Kemet dudes, they come on here, these Afrocentric dudes. Oh man, the story of Christ, that all come from Asar and Heru. Bruh, you don't really know what you're talking about. You really don't know what you're talking about. And I say that with all due respect. Okay? Osiris or Asar is Nimrod, it's not Christ. Now, his father Cush was known as the great diviner. He was known as the great prophet because he had the powers of divination. Because on the left-hand side, Satan was dealing with him. He was providing him with visions. Okay, so now in Babylon, Cush was known as Nebo, the great prophet. What were some of his other names? As Khnum also. Or in the Etruscans knew him as Tagus, if I remember correctly. Tiers and Thomas, Ages, where it was stated that he rose up out of the ground and gave divinations or oracles for the future. Okay, so Christ has nothing to do with Osiris or Heru. Osiris or Nimrod tried to take on the prophecies that were going to be assigned to Christ because he wanted to be that great Messiah. Right? He was also known as, of course, as Bacchus, the god of wine and revelry, who was also a hermaphrodite. Why is that? Because Osiris, he was a pansexual, and he also wanted to represent both the male and female parts. Same as Pan. Okay? Now, as Attis, spelled A as an apple, Ttis, his priest, the priests of Attis, castrated themselves. This is where you get a lot of the promotion of transgenderism from. Okay, in order to follow Attis, and the term Attis means to sin. In order to follow that ideology, you had to be a priest of Attis and his mother Cybele, Cybele. Cybele was stated to have the keys, or have the key, along with her husband Janus, who is Cush, to have the keys into the spirit world. All right. Now, all this, of course, the Kemetic Babylonian mystery school system trickled down into the 1800s, where it was where it was commandeered by Madame Blavatsky. And Madame Blavatsky, she ventured eastward, and she was able to study with many of the sages of Nepal and Tibet and India. And she tried to make a composite of many of the Eastern religions. And the Eastern religions were trickle-downs of the Babylonian mystery school system. And she taught many people, started her own movement called Theosophy, where she attracted people like Annie Besant, last name spelled B as in boy, Esant. And one of her students was a person named Aleister Crowley. Now, Aleister Crowley eventually started the Ordo Templi Orientis, and one of his students was a man named Gerald Gardner. Gerald Gardner was a British man who ended up creating what's known as the modern-day Wiccan religion. Okay, and they venerate something called the Wheel of the Year, where they have eight high holy days, which are basically the two solstices, winter and summer solstice, and the two equinoxes, the spring and the fall equinox. And then they also commemorate the 4 days that fall exactly in the middle of those 4 days. So if I remember correctly, it's Imbolc, it's which is known today as what's the name of that damn day? The day or Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day. See, that's what they do, brothers. They take ancient holidays and they rename them, and they get you to celebrate old pagan holidays commemorating Nimrod, but you don't know it, right? Then the next one is Ostara, which you celebrate today as Easter, which is for the mother goddess. And then it's Beltane, which is what we call today May Day on May 1st, which is for Cush or Bel. And then it's, what's the next one? Oh, the summer solstice. That name is skipping me right now for some reason, which falls around June 21st. And then you have Mabon, which is, Then you have Lugnazad. That's around August 1st. And then you have Mabon, and many of these holidays also were for agriculture, right? They will commemorate the harvest. And then you have Samhain, which we know today as Halloween, which is the day that the witches feel like is when the real world, the world that we live in, comes together with the spiritual world, and a portal is created where demons can pass through. That is what the movie E.T. was about. I've mentioned this numerous times. That's why E.T. came to Elliot around Halloween. They made him a so-called alien as a parable, as a metaphor. But E.T. represented Cush. Okay, that's why E.T. was a diviner. That's why he was a magician. By the way, I believe Benebdejet, which of course was one of the names for Cush, or the goat-headed god, his son was named Ke or Ki. And Ki was the god of magic. Now, in Upper Egypt, which is, the southern part of Kemet, he was known as Khnum, and it was stated that he was the father of Heru. So that lets you know that Ki and Heru are the same entity, and that Heru is also the god of magic, not just the god of the sun or the god of rebirth. So that takes me to Star Wars, where Luke represents Apollo. Apollo is the Greek version of Heru. And brothers, that's what the lightsabers represent. The lightsabers represent the magic wand. Okay? Star Wars is about so-called light and dark magic. Now, that's what the term force means. The term force, and I believe it was John Todd who brought this out many years ago when he was doing his expose on the music industry. He was talking about how Star Wars was just a metaphor for witchcraft and the glorification of witchcraft, because Leia is Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. All right, and that's why, coming back to Wicca, you'll see that they'll always have a horn god and a moon goddess, horn god, moon goddess, or sun god, moon goddess, or vegetation god and moon god, because it's all the same. Like the vegetation god is Tammuz. That's just another way of saying Heru. That's why Heru was green skinned. Okay.
We are witches.
Where for the very first time, members invited CBS2 to attend their services. My thoughts can heal.
Now let me rewind it back just a little bit. You'll see they had the horn god and the moon goddess on the table, those little statuettes.
Lisa Stewart and their services.
Up, and you see they had the upward pentagram there on the right wall. Let me rewind it back a little more.
For the very first time, members invited CBS2 to attend their services.
You see that star on that right wall? That's for the mother goddess. Okay, Astarte. Now you'll notice, even in Star Wars movies, many of the robes that the Jedi's wore are very much akin to the robes that these people are wearing here. Now we also know that the garments and the robes in films like Star Wars come from the ancient dress code, all right? Because people in the ancient time, they wore what were known as mantles or hoods and girdles and boots and things of that nature, etc. But Star Wars was about the story of Osiris, Shem, Apollo, Artemis, so on and so forth, and Osiris being redeemed by his son Heru, played by Luke Skywalker.
My thoughts can heal.
Now look at the table. You see the horn god and the moon goddess. The moon goddess, also known as Hecate, all right, who you know today as the Statue of Liberty, also known as Libertas. All right, this is how they sneak these things in. And these bitches here, these fat broads at the table, they don't know what the fuck they doing. All right, they just want to feel empowered by something, but they don't know what the hell they doing, and they're alienated from the church system. All right, but they don't know the church system or the so-called Catholic Church. All that is the Babylonian mystery school system. The Pope is the Vicar of Osiris.
Lisa Stewart and her husband Anton are the founders of the church.
There are definitely more of us than you think.
Oh no, there's not more you than I think. I already know a lot of you people are around. Now you see the serpent wrapping itself around this statuette's left hand. That's also an allusion to Cush. All right, remember Cush was known as the enlightener, as the sun god, and as such, he was also likened unto the serpent because the serpent was known as the master teacher, as the creature of great wisdom.
It's estimated as many as a.
And look at this statuette: the right hand up, left hand down, as above, so below, just like the Baphomet.
Many as 1 million people identify as being a witch in the U.S.
Now think about that. 1 million people identify as being a witch in the U.S. Now the United States has approximately, I would say, 380 million people. So can you imagine that 1 out of every 380 people that you come across is an out and out admitted witch? That's not even talking about the people who are witches and won't acknowledge it, and that's not even talking about the people who practice witchcraft and don't know it. So. Absolutely. So a lot of you brothers can understand now what you're surrounded by. And, the black man just walks around with his head up in the air, listening to whatever bullshit hip hop he be listening to now. I don't know what's going on. A lot of you brothers don't know what's going on. And I say that with all due love and respect. Okay. I'm not saying that to castigate you brothers. I'm saying that with all due love and respect, it's time for you to pay better attention to what's going on. There's a reason why certain things go down the way that they go down.
With 20% of that population to be in New York.
Now look at this shit. 20% of the 1 million admitted witches live in New York. So that's 200,000 out of 1 million are New York residents. And I would say that most of them are probably located in New York City, but witches prefer the rural areas because they do most of their chantings and their rituals in the woods because they venerate the forests.
York,
We have people who are professionals of all kinds.
including a librarian, a computer scientist, a nurse, and a homemaker.
And presidents and senators and mayors and governors and generals in the military. Hey, brothers, look up Michael Aquino. Last name A as in Apple, Quino. Michael Aquino. Not only was he a high-level warlock and Satanist, he was in the employ of the U.S. military in training mind control operatives. He was also a very, very dear friend of Sammy Davis Jr., who, by the way, Sammy Davis Jr. was a member of the Church of Satan. Go ahead and Google it. Google Michael Aquino and Sammy Davis Jr. and Anton LaVey. And they're all throwing up the Mano Cornuto hand sign. What's the name was also in the Church of Satan? Jane Mansfield. Jane Mansfield was a heavy believer in the Church of Satan. And she died. She was driving down the highway and got decapitated.
Very normal people are part of this religion.
No, there's no normal people as part of that belief system. It's just nut jobs who can act normal. Because at the end of the day, anyone who really understands what they believe in knows that their belief system demands blood. It demands blood to appease the quote-unquote gods. The main god that they have to appease is Osiris, or as he's known in other circles, Saturn or Shiva. He demands blood, sometimes of an animal, but a human is even better. Right? As Baal, the bull god, that's what he demands. All right, or Molech, represented by the owl. All right, and as I stated earlier, the owl, and you know what's, man, it's so ridiculous. You look up some of this information, you realize a lot of these scholars say that they don't know shit, man. I was looking up something on Minerva, and they were saying, well, we don't know why she's represented by the owl. The owl represents wisdom and the ability to see things that others can't see, because the owl obviously has visibility at night. Okay? So, Minerva was known to wear helmets with certain lenses that would give her the ability to see things that others couldn't see, because she was also a warrior. Okay, now that's parabolic, because what it basically means is that the person that she was inspired by, that being Eve and Semiramis, they considered themselves teachers and enlighteners. That's why the image of Columbia, like Columbia Motion Pictures, they show you the woman with the torch in her right hand. That symbolizes that she is an alleged enlightener. Okay? But you see, it's the same person. Like, people think that all these gods are so different. It's the same people. It's just different names and different characteristics, different manifestations of the same entities. Right? Like, you have Minerva represented by the owl, and you have in Egypt, or pardon me, in Kemet, you have Maut, M-A-U-T, who's represented by the vulture. Why? Because it's the same intent behind it, that she can see things from far away, right? Like the goddess Rhea, R-H-E-A, was also represented by the vulture. Why? Because the name Rhea, or Ra'ah in the Hebrew, means to gaze. She can see things from far away. She can see things that other people can't see. That's what's implied by that. All right? So a lot of these people, man, it's just good that it's coming out in the open.
In addition to practicing witchcraft, Dr. Davis Sprague, a former Methodist, is a practitioner of internal medicine. Joe Ladotti, a sculptor, converted from Catholicism.
Now you see that hand sign he's throwing up? So when I say that, when that hand sign represents the Manu Cornuto, so now, you brothers understand what I'm talking about. And you see he has the X across his chest. He has his hands crossed. That's for Osiris. All right? Or Asar. All right? It represents the crossroads. Asar is the god of death. That is why when they cross their hands, that's why, if you see the Kemetic pharaohs, They always had them posed like that. That was to show that they were going to cross over into the underworld. All right, they were to be guided by Anubis, I believe it was. Now, Anubis was just another personality, or Ba, as they call it in ancient Kemet, of Cush or Pharaoh Menes. All right, the Pharaoh Menes was known in Crete as King Minos, right? Menes, Minos. That's why you have the Minotaur. The Minotaur is what? Once again, half man, half bull. It's the same story everywhere you go. There's just different renditions. Same story, right? The Bacchus was also represented with the horns. Alexander the Greek, right, or as they call him, Alexander the Great. When he came into prominence, he used to like to rock the horns on his head. He even minted coins where there were horns on his head. Why? Because he stated that he was the direct descendant of Amun Zeus or Amun Ra. Okay, so that was very, very common for conquerors to try to claim descent from Nimrod because they were ruling in his spirit. Same thing with Julius Caesar.
I'll keep an open mind.
Unlike its pop culture portrayal, members say witchcraft is actually grounded in love and spirituality.
Bullshit, but whatever. You see, they showed that witch from the Wizard of Oz with the green skin. Once again, the green skin is an allusion to Tammuz or Heru, right? The gods of vegetation. All right, so when the Wizard of Oz, which I believe was written by Frank Baum, Baum, was a theosophist. Right, Oz is for Osiris, right? The Wizard of Osiris. That is why he also he lived in Emerald City, right? They venerate that color green for vegetation. The yellow brick road represented your path, what they call the golden path in Buddhism. It's all of it was just metaphorical, right? When Dorothy passed from the physical world into the spiritual world, she went from black and white into color. Remember that?
The stereotype, of course, is the broom of...
It's for sweeping your circle and clearing the energy.
Not for flying?
Not for flying.
This is a somber celebration marking the start of winter. In the Wiccan Church, Samhain is known as the Night of Souls, when witches honor their ancestors.
And Matt...
Look at them idiots walking around in a damn circle. Don't know what the hell they talking about. And let me say this before I forget, while it's at the forefront of my mind. Khnum, the goat god, he was venerated, and his priestesses or women that lived in the cities where Khnum was highly worshipped, they would have sex with goats in public. Okay, this is where you get that term of the witch riding the goat. All right, or people when they get to a high level in masonry, they ride the goat. That means to have sex with the goat. And in the ancient world, in the cities of Kemet, where he was venerated, women would have sex with goats in public.
Magic is simply the belief you can make anything happen.
It's kind of like a prayer.
There's no devil
Yeah, your ass need prayer. Your ass need prayer.
worship, only a love for the goddess.
Yep, there you go. There's the goddess. I believe that's Hecate or whatever you want to call her. Diana, Minerva. It's all the same bitch.
Goddess of creation and inspiration, along with the antlered god of all things wild and...
You hear that? The antlered god of all things wild.
And free.
When I tell people that I am a witch, I'm met sometimes with abject horror.
But this is based on old myths these modern-day witches now want to dispel.
It really is a beautiful way of life.
Bring forth your elemental power. Osiris.
Hey, you heard, you heard that shit? Osiris. I know one of these Kemet dudes gonna jump in the comments. Hey, them crackers don't know nothing about the real Osiris. They still not culture again, brother. Don't fall for it. Oh, boy, them Kemet dudes are so funny.
Now, with a strong belief in what goes around comes around, we can say that there's never a need for black magic.
Bullshit. Bullshit. Most of these people who practice witchcraft, as soon as somebody screw them over, they trying to cast spells on them. And let me say this, brothers, in closing. Be very, very careful of the woman that you're dating, man. All right? Make sure that you know what this woman's spiritual beliefs are, because a lot of these chicks are practicing witches, man. All right? A lot of these chicks are practicing. I'm not talking about playing around. I'm talking about like go hard with it. Trying to cast spells and do seances with candles and all that other shit. You make sure that you scrutinize these broads, because a lot of them are knee deep into that witchcraft shit, man. Okay? You don't want to leave the broad and then you wake up the next morning, you got 2 antlers growing out of your damn head because the broad sprinkled some shit on your forehead when you tried to leave her and then did some chant. Now you walk around, looking crazy, looking like Sir Nunos. All right? But anyway, I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything in regards to this topic or this issue. I mean, if anything, I'll bring it up later. Anyway, brothers, peace. Okay, so now I just wanted to include this photo of Kevin Hart to provide some context to the video that I just did on the Wiccan religion, which is gaining great popularity across the United States and across the world. As the newswoman said in the telecast, many people are leaving conventional religion and becoming official witches. And as I stated in the video, witchcraft is the official religion or spiritual belief system of the entertainment industry. And I've done a couple of videos on Kevin Hart and his clear worship and veneration of the god Pan, or as he's known today, the Baphomet. And he was known in the British Druid belief system as Sir Nunos, the horned stag god. And that is when I mentioned the Wheel of the Year, which has 8 high holy days. It's symbolized by a wheel with 8 spokes. And as you can see, Kevin Hart has on the all black to show that he worships Saturn and Osiris, or Saturn/Osiris. And on his left sleeve, he has the Wheel of the Year on there. Now, I did a video showing very clearly that Kevin Hart worships the goat god. They would not let me upload it onto YouTube. I believe that it's on my Patreon channel, which is at Patreon, Chronicles of Judah 144. If you go there, you can see it. All my videos are free. You don't have to pay anything to watch my videos. But I've been following this guy, Kevin Hart, for a while. And he has been a clear adherent and worshiper of the god of the entertainment industry, which makes sense because you cannot rise up the ranks of the entertainment industry unless you're initiated into the craft. Period. You cannot rise up unless you're initiated into the craft. And Kevin Hart is initiated. He is in the know. All right. So just look at his left sleeve. He has the Wheel of the Year on there to show you that he worships Pan. He can talk all the shit he wants about how he believes in Jesus, and all that is a lie in the front and the cover. All right. Underneath all that, they all have to venerate Pan and Bacchus. But anyway, peace.